Jews. I'm Hope Duggar.
Download the iRadio Now app for iPhone or Android phones. Free at your iPhone App Store or Android App Market. Take AM 1470 WWNN with you wherever you go.
Here's some great news from Tom Trento, host of the daily WNN Trento Vision Show. Due to the unparalleled success of the Trento Vision Show, you now have an amazing opportunity to advertise on the Trento Vision Show. If you want more information about this excellent opportunity for your business, please contact Tom Trento at 561-319-5533, or you can email him, tom@trentovision.tv. The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Trento Vision is hosted by Tom Trento. Tom can be reached at 561-319-5533 or tom@trentovision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and trentovision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Hey, welcome to the Jewish Hour here on Trento Vision, where we will explore all things Jewish, all things kosher. Did you know that a grasshopper is a grasshopper?
There are four types of insects that.
I am learning a lot here today. Let me tell you.
On National Palestine Radio.
National Palestine Radio. Good afternoon, Tom Trento here at 7 minutes. They're Palestine. 7 minutes past 5 o'clock on the, what is it, the 8th of January, 213 already, in the year 213.
In the year
In the common year of our Lord 213, Allah, thank Allah. We're just one big happy family. No, we're not. There's differences, folks, in various religions. But can you get along? We're a perfect example. I'm trained as a Christian theologian. You're a Jewish theologian, correct? We get along? Of course we do, and we're learning all kinds of stuff. We have differences of opinion about our faiths. I mean, Jesus Christ, we disagree over that.
I disagree with all of you.
Yeah, he disagrees with all of us. We still can't get our hand. I can understand his doctrines. I can't get yours. Yours like a greased pig with in oil, trying to hold on to your doctrines. Well, is this what you believe? Well, maybe, sometimes, sort of, whatever. It's Unitarian Universalist. Now you add that to it. But you know what? These are the struggles that we face, and my experience in all the years as a Christian activist is, and this, we were talking about this in the last hour, is that in times, not only in terms of a personal epiphany or need, in difficult times for repentance, coming before God and saying, you know, I messed up as an individual, and I messed up as a member of my society, and I've put money before God, I put money before people, I put fame before people, whatever the issues are. And we can delineate the errors in your life and point them out quite clearly. If you Catholics, you'd have to go to confession. We Protestants, we don't have to do that anymore. What do you guys do when you sin? What do you do? Oh, you have...
we have Yom Kippur.
You're all forgiven, that's it.
You got the other...
Yeah, we got to wait all year.
Yeah,
we have a lot to keep track of.
That's right. You got to keep all that, but then you throw it in the water and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's something else. If somebody really sins
well, in the ancient world, you brought a sin offering. There was a specific offering for sins. So, but
there's another term. I'll remember the term.
Yeah.
I'll remember. I've been in some discussions. But in any event, we're. The beauty of the American experiment is that people of any faith can come into the United States and sign a contract. You literally take an oath, at least you used to. I think that's still going on nowadays. And the oath simply says you can practice your religion. It cannot obviously be illegal, can't violate American law, all of that. can't have 4 wives. Sorry, our Muslim brothers and sisters, but that doesn't fly, just as the Mormons had to learn that also. But we unite on a compact, an agreement, a social compact called the Constitution primarily. Then you can exercise your faith.
In a Unitarian fashion.
In a Unitarian fashion. But then the conflict we're seeing right now is we have a system insinuating itself into the American contract, which by definition, as we have delineated extensively on the show through our Sharia segments, Islam repudiates democracy philosophically and theologically, and it makes sense. They said God gives the law. How could man, if God gives the law, and the law was given supernaturally in this book that's written perfectly, where does man fit into that equation? And buying into their epistemology, their viewpoint, their worldview, it makes sense. Inserting that system into the American experiment has a little clash, a little tiny clash. That's why we're having problems with some of the Muslim Brotherhood folks worldwide and in the United States. But what we're discussing today is national security for Israel as it relates to this administration's selection of men. And if we read the Bible carefully, men were always selected to lead, all the time, nations. And some men led by the direction of God, some didn't. And the consequences we're there to see. Question we're dealing with right now before we get into Chuck Hagel, Charles Hagel, and the president and a few other good guys is personal reflection and personal contrition and national contrition, national recognition that there is a God. And I think this is graphically illustrated on December 14th, 2012, when that horrible few moments of 20 kids getting mowed down, and those kids, seconds before they were mowed down, were not allowed to pray in any formal way. You can pray in your own head wherever you want, but in any formal way, I guarantee you the teachers in that building were praying to God for God's supernatural intervention. They were violent, and they may have been praying aloud. Now, think about this. If federal law does not allow teacher-directed prayer in schools, there's no exceptions, but in a crisis like this, it's okay to call upon Providence, the supernatural creator and sustainer. What does that say about the nature of this law that prohibits that activity when the matter of life and death need isn't there, but the matter of understanding how to live your life in a moral and successful way? So maybe we need to return to prayer. I don't know. Rabbi, what do you think?
All I can tell you is from the Jewish standpoint, there was a need 100 years ago to become political again. It's not that Jews are totally apolitical, but the ideas of sovereignty, the ideas of controlling your own destiny, they were dormant for so long. So those who rebelled against tradition and against religion were doing so in a very important way to try to re-energize Judaism with political activism, with Zionism, with the responsibilities of sovereignty. But what's happened is that was taken much too far. The state should not take the place of God. Zionism should not be a civil religion. Of course, threats to Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, certainly Iran, but internally, one of the great dangers Israel faces is ideological and is the soul of the nation. And I guess that this is a same issue for American Jewry. But there needs to be there needs to be a turn back and a rediscovery of God and a realization that that rejection of God initially was necessary for its time, but not forever. And that if you want to sustain continuity without God and have only a political Zionism and a cultural Zionism and not a Zionism including a God of history, I doubt that Israel will make it if there isn't a return to a God of history.
Wow. Well, here we are, Tom Trento, Trento Vision with Mark and CJ and Rabbi Kavon and Mike, and who else is here? Kenny's here. We got a whole crew going on. And you can be here too, 888-565-1470. We're discussing national security issues, but we got into this very interesting area of personal responsibility as an American citizen, as a citizen in Israel, and then even more importantly, personal relationship to God in light of correcting some of the political problems in the West, in America. If some of the Jewish people listening to you right now, and my experience is that a large portion of existing Jewry in the world are non-believers. They may be agnostic. I don't know if there's a God, if there is, who cares? I'm Jewish, hey, whatever. Or even atheistic. And we have many Jewish political leaders historically that were pure hardcore atheists, Marxists, communists. But if somebody listens to you and they say, look, God hasn't been much in my life, but you're kind of making sense. When you say a return, what does that mean? Sketch out what a Jewish person has to do from where he is, God not really being part of his life, to where you think it would be appropriate. What behavior has to change?
There's got to be a change in the way people think. And the notion of God being remote, a God of the philosophers. There's always been this tension in Judaism about trying to reconcile Judaism with the science of the day or the philosophy of the day. And that's fine, because you want your faith to be relevant. But at some point when you cross the line and your God is the God of the philosophers, it's Aristotle's God, who's totally transcendent, who doesn't care, who's totally removed, who sets everything in motion, but after that, that's not inherently Jewish. That is not and Heschel talked about, Abraham Joshua Heschel, he talked about a Jewish way of thinking. It wasn't the Greek way of thinking, the Greek philosophical. And many great minds in Judaism, they strove to reconcile their faith with what was the science of the day, which 1,000 years ago was Aristotle or Plato. And the fact is, once you lose that God of the Bible who's talking to Abraham and to whom Abraham is speaking, once you lose that God at Sinai, or the God walking in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, or the God who brings the bones back to life and gives them flesh and they revive. Once that concept is lost and God becomes a principle, a philosophical principle, or we can't believe in a chosen people because that's not politically correct, then you've crossed the line out of Judaism. Now, my goal is not to exclude Jews from the tribe of Jewish faith, and the fact is that Jewish identity was based on law and community for most of Jewish history. But there really is a need to rediscover a God of history, a God who is involved with a people that God consciously chose for a special mission. And once we say, oh, but that's claiming superiority, and how can you say that? And we're in America, everybody's equal under the eyes of the law. How can you say you're better? But I can tell all of you that if a person cannot articulate why their way of life is not better than somebody else's, why are they the way they are?
Why are they believing it?
Say why you are. And this is the problem. And CJ, you mentioned about Jews coming to synagogue. Problem is in our community is that Jews are not able to articulate why they are Jewish. It's either a feeling, or in ethnic food or social justice. People cannot, or because grandpa and grandma and grandpa, Bubby and Zadie, did it this way, and that's why we do it. That can't last. There's got to be something with much more depth, both theologically and historically, to be able to say who you are. If you can't articulate that, you are in big trouble. And
if somebody Jewish listening says, "Man, this sounds pretty good. I want to take the next step." What is that, like Bible studies, Torah studies, or what's the next step?
There is a lot of great literature that was produced, but I mean, besides the Bible, I mean, the texts range from, and this is part of the problem is, Judaism is considered this cold religion of law and not a religion of love or of ethics, and there is a vast amount of ethical literature, mystical literature, spiritual literature. There are so many places to go for inspiration, whether through an individual or a rabbi or a layman, but certainly through the texts themselves. There is such a rich heritage of texts that have been written in all areas of Jewish life. Why does a Jew have to go to Buddhism to discover spirituality? It makes no sense.
All right, the next step. If I'm buying this and I go, all right, I'm going to go to Torah stuff, all that.
What's the one basic thing that somebody would read?
The one basic text? Yeah. Trying to think.
Think of that while I ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because that's always a hard thing. What's the one? It's always hard to pull that one out.
Where would you start?
Yeah. I'll tell you a good place. A good place would be Avot, the father, the ethics of the fathers. It really, Pirkei Avot. It's made up of ethical maxims of early rabbis and their predecessors, the Pharisees. It's wonderful in that it presents another side to Jewish law, or to Judaism, because sort of the caricature, but it was the reality, was that when the early church fathers were discussing what is the nature of God, is Jesus human, is Jesus divine, the rabbis were arguing, can you eat an egg laid by a hen on the Sabbath? So the caricature is set in that this is all the rabbis did, was arguing, well, if a dead body is halfway inside a private home and in the street, can a person become impure by walking? Everyone they've lost the reality that there's much more to Judaism. And this is sort of a caricature based in truth about the importance of Jewish law, but it's not law alone. And again, just remember, love thy neighbor as thyself is in Leviticus.
Yep, that's right. So, all right, now let's go where the rubber meets the road. All right, if somebody comes to me and says, Christian, and they say, Tom, I fell away and I want to get my life straightened out. What do I need to do? And, I make a few recommendations. And they go, do I have to change my behavior? Those 10 Commandments, like I'm kind of knocking off about 5 or 6 of them right now and I ain't doing too well. My answer is yeah. You have to change your behavior. You ultimately, and it takes time and all of that, but your goal has to be to not violate the law of God. That is a behavior change that's part and parcel of what it means to be a righteous person drawing closer to God. If the Jewish guy comes to you and says, those commandments getting away a little bit here, do I really have to change my life and follow all those things? If not, maybe we're jumping over on your side.
What I would say is that you view the commandments within a much larger picture. The picture is about the way the Hebrew Bible was traditionally interpreted by Jews, which is really about the destiny of a people chosen by God. It's about a destiny, about a path that people take as a group, as a tribe, as a nation. And the commandments can't be viewed in tunnel vision solely as, this is a commandment that if I break, I'll be punished or I'm a sinner. It's got to be viewed within a much larger context. That this is really about commandments that were meant to meld the nation together. The fact is that the Exodus and Sinai, I mean, Sinai really, we think about it, and yes, it was a religious experience in terms of revelation, but these laws were given so a society in the land of Israel could live and had laws to which to guide them. So much of it is not just about, oh, you know, you're a bad person, you're a sinner. It's about whether you're going to be a part of this drama in history, whether these commandments are going to be personally meaningful. It's got to be a combination. One of somehow there's a DNA there, both a physical and spiritual DNA, but also that the commandments mean something to me as an individual. You combine both, I think it's very potent.
All right, I get the kind of the philosophical, but if the guy says, you know, my wife and I are doing fine, but my girlfriend and I are doing a lot better, is that okay?
No, it isn't. Of course, it isn't.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to I'm trying to see where.
No, but I just the reason is that often you know, people get lost in the particulars of the commandments, and with trying to be as stringent as possible as following the commandments. So, for example, looking for microscopic bugs in, excuse me, in broccoli because it might make them unkosher when you can't even see them, and they'll refuse to eat broccoli, which throughout history most Jews ate broccoli and were not looking for microscopic.
I love broccoli.
Once you start looking, I mean, it's either way. And I told this to CJ and I were talking about this during the break. On the one hand, if it's all social justice and ethics, it's in the human domain, that's a form of idolatry because God is not God is not in the picture. Right. On the other end, if the law becomes an end, the law is not a means to become a holy nation, but the laws are an end in themselves, that's also idolatry.
Good point.
The Torah becomes idolatry if that's what happens.
Well, the problem also comes down to the moral issues. Is whether the moral issues are acceptable by the faith or not by the faith and that's where a big distinction has come between, you know, Christianity nowadays, like the church out on the in California that sided with Impact, you know their doctrines is marriage can be happening between anybody, you know.
There are leaders in gay marriage, and all stuff.
And things like that. But what now all of a sudden, they're trying to espouse that, and I'm not a Christian, okay? I'm looking at it from an outside point of view. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Christian doctrine, and no, that's like, you know, big red no.
It's very easy in the Christian world, because there are key fundamentals, to test a person to see if they meet the key fundamentals. If they don't, they're not a Christian. They can go in a garage and call themselves a car, you know, as much as you can go in a church and call yourself a Christian. But if you don't have a core set of specific beliefs, you're not a Christian.
Yeah,
that's just simple.
Same thing with Judaism.
No, it's different. You're born a Jew.
It's not the same.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you don't follow the core principles of Judaism, you're not.
You are.
No, you are.
You are just.
You're always a Jew. Once a Jew, always a Jew.
Although I think that at the end of the day, if you lose those core values,
well, that's my question.
The tribal elements of Jewish identity and the family elements of Jewish the national, they're going to wither. They can't last without some sort of component that is traditional, historical, sustain the community for thousands of years.
But Rabbi, you should have been gone 2,000 years ago.
Oh.
Why has so small a group of people been sustained in light of falling away, but for the supernatural hand of God?
Well, you know, the issue is if you lose...
Got you around for a reason.
If you lose...
Why are you guys here? What is going on?
Everybody hates you.
We love you.
If you lose that sense of... again, I don't... You know, politically correct is... Oh, no superiority. No child can fail. Everybody gets a C.
Yeah, right,
there are no A's or F's, or nobody can do better. Come on, all of us do this. I hope so. I hope that everybody looks at themselves, looks at him or herself, person, and says, you know, why am I this way, no matter what I believe or what I do, and why aren't I something else? There's got to be a point at which you say, the way I'm living is superior to another way of living. Right. I just can't see how it alone can be, my father did this, my grandfather, my grandmother, or no, we're all equal and total relativism. Everybody's on an equal plane. At some point, to be honest and to be politically incorrect, we've got to say, you know, as you said about dialogue and about ecumenical dialogue, you know, what do we disagree? What are the points of disagreement? Yeah. We can talk about the points of agreement, but at some point you say, I'm a Jew for this reason. I'm a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist or an atheist. But you've got to, at some point, for at least for me, you've got to articulate why your way of life is the way of life you're living.
Well, and that's healthy. That's real. That's real dialogue. That's a valid dialogue, not the BS from Islam, which is let's find our points of agreement. And usually the ones that go into that sort of nonsense aren't clear thinkers to start with. They don't have a solid understanding of who they are, other than I want to be part of something. And then Islam just sucks them up and chews them out
and spits them out because they have a purpose, they have a mission, and they're
That's
driven.
Their mission, sure.
And they are actually driven and communally to think that theirs is the best. On the flip side, for what you're saying, like take for example a basketball analogy or any sports analogy where you say, oh, you know what, everybody's equal. Everybody should redistribute their players around. Like, are you nuts?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Are you nuts? You know, but you got, you know, Islam as a team out there fighting us, and that, you know what, they are well organized. They are well motivated. They're believers. They're diehards about it. Where is that diehardness belief on the Christian side, on the Jewish side, on the American side? As you know, if you believe the Constitution is the way to go.
Contract, sure.
I think on the Jewish side, it is within the world of Judaism and not in the public world or the political world.
But isn't that
and that's why you're not hearing it.
Isn't
because
that the destiny?
Where that is taking place is taking place at synagogues that you wouldn't be going to.
But if you're a Jewish person and you believe this is your destiny, that you're chosen by God,
But it's also not our destiny to tell everybody that this is what it is and you should join us.
That's not what I'm trying to say. No, what I'm trying to say is the leadership, the communal structure is a. You know, we helped create one of the greatest communal structures in the world. It's called America. You know, along with the Christians, they help both us together. You know,
in Judaism, you would just do it. You would not talk about it.
But you're not doing it. You're talking about the social order, the social redistribution. Going back to his point earlier, what he was saying about it's not just laws of commandments. It's laws of how to run a community. It's laws of how to run a society.
The Jewish community. It's not the same thing. You're talking about different things.
Well, what are we talking about
what
here?
I'm saying is those ideas have been incorporated into a thing called the Constitution.
Let me catch everybody up to speed here. It's 5:33 on Jewish Vision. It's a new name for Trento Vision. It's called Jewish Vision. And we're discussing...
I give over the microphone.
Yeah. But somebody got a note here from Danita. The two other rivers were the Pishon and the Gihon. I could remember Pishon, P-I-S-H-O-N. Just read both of them in the Bible. How to go back? Gihon, G-I-H-O-N.
Gihon, yeah.
Gihon.
There were 4 rivers, but only 2 can be identified.
That can be
the Tigris and Euphrates.
But what we're doing here, folks, on Trento Vision on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon in lovely, except lovely for those from Alabama, not too lovely from those of you from South Bend, Indiana. Lovely Tuesday afternoon, 5:33 in the afternoon. It's 77 degrees in this room. What is it outside, CJ?
It is 79 degrees.
Oh, so it's a little warmer outside.
Beautiful downtown Boca Raton.
And let's get an up-to-date.
Begins to set.
It is. It's getting. It's setting later, I think. Let's get a traffic report. A top-notch A1 traffic report from Mike.
5:30, so it's going to be 5 o'clock traffic.
5 o'clock traffic. Okay, there you go, everybody. Now you know how to drive and where to drive.
5 o'clock hour.
This is
5 o'clock traffic.
5 o'clock traffic.
Today's title for our 3 hours, Bye Bye Jews. And then I wrote that there's what did I write? I wrote there's a new anti-Israel group coming together in Washington. President Obama with Chuck Hagel, a senator, former senator, and John Brennan being recommended for the CIA, Hagel, the Department of Defense. And if you know anything about these guys, they have a particular view on they're pro-Palestinian, they are pro-Muslim Brotherhood, and they are. It's you know, I fight with a lot of Christian people too, not just Jewish people on Obama. Oh no, he's doing so much for Israel. First of all, U.S. law has already mandated what he has to do, so he can't let him try to stop continuing to sell parts and equipment and missiles and all of this to Israel. There's a mandate to do that, so he's doing that, but he will do just as little as possible to assist Israel. And you saw this very clearly in Washington, in the United Nations recently with the vote. What was it? 139 nations voting for Palestine to become a state.
9
saying no, and 41 abstaining. Where was President Obama saying to? How come he didn't lobby France and Germany and all these European countries that went against Israel? If he's a hero, if he's a messiah, he's viewed as a messiah in Europe. Why didn't he use his messianic capability to go there and say, "Don't mess with Israel"? Why didn't he take a public stand and say we've got to stand? He did not. I mean, look at what's going on, folks. So now we see this serious turn toward significant portions of our intelligence and defense capability. Our whole military and our primary intelligence agency, the Central Intelligence Agency, going in a direction that is not supportive of Israel. That's what we were basically going to talk about. But we got more involved in
but then we had you here, and it was just so interesting to go off.
No, I think we want to do a weekly segment where we have people call in and ask questions, because you have an amazing wealth of information with a historical background, and you studied in Israel, right?
Yes, I did.
How long were you there?
I was there for 10 months in 82, 83, and I studied at the yeshiva where the young men served in the army.
Oh, right.
And then after college, I studied at Hebrew University, the Ulpan, the basic Hebrew courses, which I completed. But
all right. Perfect. But maybe we have somebody on the line who wants to talk to you. Do we? Who do we have?
We have Danita on the
line. Our Danita. Hi, Danita.
Hi, Danita. Happy New Year.
Hi, guys. Happy New Year, guys.
How you doing?
I just want to say one thing. I just want to make one distinction. Jews are born Jews, and even if they become Christians, they're still Jews. You cannot do, that heritage is forever. And non-Jews are born Gentiles. We choose to be Christians when we decide to trust Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior and the controller of our lives.
Oh, that's interesting. I've had a lot of discussions with Jewish people who say when a Jewish person converts to any faith, whether it's Christianity or something else, Buddhism you were talking about, if a Jewish person converts to Buddhism, I guess you can convert to Buddhism.
I know a lot of Jewish Buddhists, actually.
Are they Jewish or are they Buddhist?
Always and forever a Jew.
Well, practically, you look, for example, at Spain in 1492, 100,000 Jews left rather than convert to Catholicism, but 50,000 converted. A number of them practiced Judaism in secret later on in Spain and Portugal. Mm-hmm. But even though they were born Jewish, if you look at their descendants today, most of them are Christians who are walking the streets of Barcelona and Madrid and Lisbon. Practically, it may have been the first generation after the conversion where they were still considered as Jews, but a few generations later, they are as Christian as...
Oh, really?
I mean,
only in their thought, though, they still, their heritage can't...
Their blood.
Well, I mean, there is...
That's an interesting...
It just... the issue of blood alone, I think in a way it's a myth. The issue that it's only a matter of birth, even though obviously, people have always said deed rather than creed in Judaism, and it's a family versus belief system. But if the belief system is going to be sustained, it has to be practiced. So eventually that Jewish identity, a couple of generations later, is going to be gone.
With that family, with that group. That's interesting.
So that's why a Torah has to be read a certain amount of times and at certain
times. You got to talk into the mic there. Can't hear you.
Like if you
leave a Torah,
Okay, thank you, Danita. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you. If you leave a Torah unread for too long, then it can't be considered a Bible Torah.
I didn't know. I don't know, but I just.
No, I see your point. I mean, if you don't practice something for 200 years, you may have a little bit of DNA in you that's traced back to Abraham.
Then you're considered to have Jewish ancestry. I don't think anybody considers you to be Jewish unless they want to kill you. And
see, this is how the rabbis.
If we don't like you, you're Jewish.
This is how the rabbis went
nuts.
You. Well, because now they go, can this guy make Aliyah?
I want to give you an example. I don't know. Again, I know the show. You want to talk about Chuck Hagel, and
that's okay.
But this is a case in Israel that is connected to this issue. There was a Jew in Kavna in Lithuania. His name was Shmuel Rufeisen, and he was hidden during the Holocaust by nuns. He was hidden in a convent, and he was influenced by their example, and he converted to Catholicism and actually became a monk. Then, once Israel came into being a few years later, the law of return, which was a Knesset-mandated law, it wasn't a law mandated by religious law, by halakha, said one grandparent, basically mirroring the Nuremberg laws, you're Jewish and you automatically become a Jewish citizen. So Brother Daniel came to Israel and he said, my mother was Jewish. I was born to Jewish parents. I'm a Jew. You've got to let me in under the law of return.
He's a monk?
So he's a monk. Yeah. So he wanted to test out this law. So it went to the Israeli Supreme Court. The religious courts didn't have anything to do with it. So it went to the Israeli Supreme Court, and they viewed 2-1 that Brother Daniel was not Jewish. But they did it not based on any Jewish law. They did it based on a British statute called the Reasonable Man Statute. If a reasonable person saw this, what would they say? So the question was, if a reasonable person saw Brother Daniel in his monk's cassock and his dress, would they consider him a Jew? So the law didn't come from within Jewish law.
Hey, our laws ain't making it. Let's grab something from over there.
I mean, there are examples in Jewish history of, for example, in Portugal, of Jews 3 generations after a conversion, which was forced in Portugal in 1497, who did return to Judaism in places like Amsterdam or in the Papal States in Italy or in the Ottoman Empire. There are examples of people generations later, but the male adults who wanted to return, they had to be circumcised. They had to go through a formal conversion back to Judaism. So it wasn't as if their conversion was nullified because of birth. They had to actively convert back into Judaism. Sure.
Okay, but that's like a man-made rule. I think what Danita was saying was, or trying to ask, or trying to articulate, was something different.
No, what she was saying is, if a real live Jewish person, you change your mind, you convert to Islam tomorrow, okay, you're still Jewish. You're a Jewish Muslim. You're still Jewish. Everything's Jewish. You just have a different religious belief. Your nationality is Jewish. You have a different religious belief.
That's what she's trying to say, and I think she comes to that from the perspective of being a Christian person who embraces Jewish people who convert to Christianity as being like the true Jews, or like not Jews for Jesus, but something. I'm trying to think of. There's another name.
Messianic? Completed?
No. Completed Jews. Yeah, completed Jews. I think that's the perspective that she's coming from.
I guess I disagree with it because I see, for example, I don't see the reality, and I know some listeners probably disagree vehemently with me, but a Jew who embraces Jesus as a Messiah, as a person,
or Muhammad, go both
or
ways.
Muhammad and the Quran as a divine revelation of God, for me, that is crossing a line out of Judaism, no matter what the birth status is. And there's a Jewish saying, Yisrael afal pi shechata Yisrael hu. An Israelite, even if he transgresses, is still an Israelite. But the rabbis always argued, how far does that go? I mean, what is a transgression?
Be a Satanist?
I mean,
Yeah.
if the person is God forbid, is an adulterer, or is a thief, or is even a murderer, perhaps that's an issue where, even though they sin, they're still Jewish, and they're executed as a Jewish murderer in terms of biblical capital punishment. But theologically, once you cross the line out of the Sinai covenant into either Jesus as a personal savior or the Quran as the final revelation of God, that to me is not a sin. That's a total transformation. And I know that there are probably many Jews who believe Jesus is their personal Messiah who say I'm totally wrong. But again, that's such a core principle that to cross that line means you're crossing out of Judaism.
Well, yeah, the difficulty for the Jewish called people is that it's both a nation and a religion. So it's different. You know, where's the dividing line with those two things? I mean, I grew up as a Catholic. I was raised in a Catholic church, but I chose to leave Catholicism at one point and go to Protestantism, but I didn't leave being Italian. you know, I was Italian wherever I was floating around. Though many of my cousins would say, "You're no longer Italian. You're not Catholic anymore." You know, and my one who's watching right now, he'll say that. But let's spend the remaining minutes. Forget about Chuck Hagel. He's an idiot anyway. But the remaining minutes, you get a call tomorrow, and it's the Pope of Judaism, whoever that is, the top guy, and he says,
who would that be?
Yeah, who would that be? Who's the top Jew?
Obama.
and he says, I heard you guys speaking, and I want some direction on how we can lead Jews in America to repentance, to on our knees to repentance and to a righteous understanding of who God is, and then as productive citizens in America. What are the 2 or 3 things that you would say is necessary for a Jewish revival?
Okay, for Jewish revival, first, there's got to be an understanding that, as you said, it's not a matter of religion alone. It's not a matter of a compartmentalized just ritual and prayer. There's got to be a sense that this, again, I use the word destiny repeatedly, but if there's no sense of collective destiny among Jews,
well, then what's the sense of it?
Then
right,
what's the sense, and there's no future. There's got to be a sense of historical connection, a connection to the soil of Israel, a connection, no matter what a person believes about the literal meaning of the Bible, that the idea of covenant, of a relationship between people and God is essential. Not to have that, you have a political party, you have a social group, you do not have a people based on a covenant. Part of the problem that we have as a community is that when people look back, they look at massacres and exiles, and instead of saying, it wasn't every day that a Jew woke up in Yemen or in Germany in the medieval period and said, "Oh my God, this afternoon there's going to be a pogrom. We better go into hiding." They didn't. They basically stayed put where they were, and they had basically a complex of superiority. They believed that no matter what happens to us, we have this covenant. We have this agreement. It's going to stand the test of time, even in the worst of events. And, of course, what comes to mind is the Holocaust. Even with something that is
You know who believes that? Every evangelical Christian believes that the Jewish people have been called in a supernatural way. There's a covenant, there's protection there, and that will remain till the end times.
Yeah, I mean
that's a core Christian belief.
Without a covenant, without a God of history, and without a relationship to God, I don't know what there is. It's either just some sort of shell of culture in which somebody will say, well, I'm a cultural Jew, and how do you sustain that? What being a cultural
Build
Jew?
Build buildings and put your name on it.
I mean, what does it mean on a day-to-day level in terms of who you are? How do you express yourself as a Jew on a day-to-day basis in a way that's meaningful and can carry on another generation, another 2 generations, and forever? So that's one. I mean, I spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah, that's important. That's the foundation.
You know, I don't. Without that sense of mission, without a sense, and again, I know it sounds politically incorrect, but without a sense
on this show, come on,
superiority, and doesn't mean you're better than another person. It doesn't mean you're racially or intellectually superior. It means you have a calling and a mission. And part of your life and part of your the way you dedicate your life is to carry out a mission that was given to your ancestors 3,500 years ago. And this is an ongoing mission, and it's a privilege to be able to have. It's not a burden. It's not as if the laws are a burden or a yoke or something you want to throw off. They are liberating, and they give life meaning. And they give this mission meaning. Without that sense of mission and without the sense of, you know, I'm doing something because it's a lesson to the world or there's something to teach, without falling into the trap of that's so prevalent today of relativism, which really, you know, levels the playing field where nobody can be better than anybody else. You know, why the mission in the first place if there's no sense of the mission being important, being something the world might learn, or whatever? There's got to be a sense of
mission. And what is that mission?
Well,
what is
that's the difference of being born Jewish, which you can be, but you also have free will. You are Jewish in your life by what you do and what you believe, by choice, not because you were born that way.
Yeah.
And that's really the difference.
Now, along those lines, all my life, you know, studying Christianity, Judaism, Jews are the chosen people. Well, people could easily mistake that for, they're chosen, they're better than everybody else. I mean, that's easy to make that mistake. A true study shows they're chosen for a horrendous job of bringing, you know, monotheism, of bringing the light of the law of God to a world that doesn't want to know it. I mean, think of the task of being chosen to do a difficult job like that. And has that mission changed today?
The mission has changed in some ways because of the return of the Jews to the land of Israel as sovereigns. But the mission is always there. And I think that the core idea is that you have a slave people who are, you know, they are the losers of history. God hears their cry. He hears it. And that's what it says in the Bible. God hears the cry of the oppressed and lifts them up and takes the slave people and imbues them with holiness, hopefully based on merit and not just based on biology.
And I think that's a good note to
individual inspiration,
to end
the basis of
just,
the Constitution.
Yeah, we'll that's a good note to end on our studies in Jewish history and Jewish law. And
Here on NPR Radio, National Palestine Radio.
No, that was fascinating. You know, and whoever, believe me, because if you were on the outside, if you have any interest in this sort of stuff, and you're listening to us, this was a fascinating conversation. I mean, there were so many different angles and different ways we went. So we thank you all for.
We thank you for sharing.
Oh, and we will not be broadcasting tomorrow as far as on the video side.
Tomorrow we
will.
Yeah,
it's Friday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
Thursday. He's leaving Thursday.
Okay.
So Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
We'll only be on the radio side. We're only music for your ears or whatever Mort says. We got to launch our Mort thing too. We'll do that tomorrow, and a few other things. But Rabbi, thank you very, very much. We will have you back next week, and the Rabbi Hour.
New Members Friday.
But
That's right.
I think what we'll do.
It is New Members Friday.
I think what we'll do is we'll promote it. We'll put some stuff out and have people call in. In any event, thank you very much. Tom Trento signing off for the crew right now. We are on our way out of here. And we are on our way out of here right now.
Thanks for tuning into Trento Vision, where bad ideas get pulverized and the truth will set you free. Tom Trento can be reached at 561-319-55.